Welcome to the House of Truth. We just finished a little mini series about the wisdom of God with the cross, the resurrection, and the ascension, about his hidden wisdom in that plan. So now we're resuming with our discussion on wisdom in business, and previously we talked about wisdom in handling wealth and acquiring wealth. I'm sorry, and acquiring wealth. And the day we're going to talk about the wise business model and the foolish one. How there's really two general overarching business models apply to every business approach to business. Maybe I should say call two, anyways. And we're talking about these two different approaches to business. Okay, and we're going to begin with the wise one today. And we read in Proverbs 3, verse 9 through 10, the following: Honor the Lord with your substance, with the first fruits of all your increase. So shall your barns be filled with plenty, and your presses shall burst out of new wine. Okay. If you're this is of course speaking of agricultural terms, and if your barn is like your warehouse, your storehouse, and it's burst when it's filled with plenty, you've got your business is doing well, and of course the wine press is also. You got to get as the wine factory. Okay, so you've got you get you're stored up, and you're producing out, and everything's just flowing well. And the secret to that in this first business model starts with honoring the Lord with our substance, with what we have, in the first fruits of our increase, recognizing He gave it to us, and let Him, and showing Him that we rely on Him. We rely on Him with it. We rely on Him for this. So we want to honor Him by paying tithes and offerings, giving offerings. Because when we do that, we make Him our business partner. He now has a part of our business. We've given him a 10% or more interest in our business. So he'll bless it, because he wants to bring about His will on this earth through us. Now we look in Proverbs 16, verse 7, and Solomon gives us some more advice about this. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. So when we're doing what pleases the Lord, even those who are competitors or even enemies, they're going to be at peace with us. Maybe not because they want to be, because he's going to move on. He's going to move on them to do so in various ways. Perhaps they'll give us respect or something else. But the main thing is they're not going to be hindering our ability to run our business. Perhaps with like people have done sometimes in the past. It's happened in America where a company tries to put their company out of business just by tying them up in court all the time, so they can't take care of their business and run their business, and try to force them in a position where they have to sell their business to them, at often less than what it's worth. Well, they're not going to be able to do that to us if we make sure our ways are pleasing to the Lord. He will protect us from such schemes as that. In Proverbs 16, verse 11, Solomon also gives us this great piece of advice here: a just weight and balance of the Lord's. All the weights of the bag are His word. Of course, what's talking about here is what you use to weigh payment, and what you use to weigh what you're giving people. Back in the day, they might, like, I might trade you flour for hamburger or something like, maybe I trade you flour for hamburger, say, and maybe we come to an agreement: 3 pounds of flour for 1 pound of hamburger. and we got a scale, and we got little weights on there. I put the pound weight on one end. Start putting the hamburger on there, and it goes up, and it's even. Now I've given you your hamburger. Now I put some more weights on there to make 3 pounds, and maybe you have little bags of flour. You have flour. I got a little container to put the flour in, and we're gonna put that in there, and it's gonna till it's 3 pounds. What we're doing is having my 3 pounds be really 3 pounds, and that balance not being rigged somehow or something like that. So I'm giving you what you paid for. I'm not charging more than what you paid. I'm not charging you more, and I'm not giving you less. I'm giving what you paid for, and not charging the extra, as I said. So that's the way of the Lord. This is this business model here. This business model is built on integrity and honesty, and it comes from trusting in the Lord again, and doing things His way. Now we're going to His ways a little bit more here in this business model, and we're going to start here in Proverbs 3, in verse 27 through 28. Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, who is in the power of your hand to do it. Say not to your neighbor, go and come again, and tomorrow I'll give you when you have it by you. So what's Solomon's saying here, Shalomo, if you prefer, is telling us to do is if we owe someone, pay your bills on time. Pay and particularly pay your employers on time, your employees, or if you contract some work out to somebody. If you have the money, if you have it in your hand, go ahead and pay them. Don't be sitting there concerned that, well, yeah, I have it, but I really would like to get that money invested in something else or whatever the case may be. You need to go ahead and pay them when it's due if you have it. It's like an example in this. There's about someone coming and doing some work for you, and you agreed when the job's over, you're going to pay them. You're going to pay them everything you owe them if you have it. Don't be telling them don't be putting it off for another day. If you can pay them today, pay them. Now, if some sort of circumstance prevent you from doing that, then of course you may have to come to an agreement to pay them in installments or whatever the case may be, or something like that. But if you have it, just go ahead and pay them. This is part of walking in His ways. This wise business model, that's His model. Now we continue on in Proverbs 11, 24 through Proverbs 11, verse 24 through 25. We see some more principles about how we're going to handle our money here. There is that scatters yet increases. There is that withholds more to his meat, but it tends to poverty. The liberal sow shall be made fat, and he that waters shall also be watered himself. Okay, so scattering here and yet increasing. That's about investing. Okay, and if you just try to hold on to all your money, you can never save yourself into prosperity. Now you do need to keep some savings, but notice withhold more than proper. So you need it. But if you try to hold on to all of it, you'll never increase your wealth. In fact, it'll tend to poverty, because you'll start having to draw that savings for to pay sort of maybe day-to-day expenses or whatever, and it's never going to go up for certain. And something may come along, of course, and brings it down, and there won't be any replacement coming in. So you need to invest. So it's about investing here, okay? It's again, kind of speaking agriculture, like scattering seed. If I have a bushel of seed, or like when we grew up, we had a big corn bin, and if we just held all the corn in the corn bin and didn't plant any of it, well, eventually we're going to eat some of it, and it's going to just go down. Now we can't necessarily plant all of it because we have to eat, right? And accept. So what you need to do is figure out how much of you absolutely have to have, put that aside, and take the rest of it and plant it. Or, for liability, invest it in some way. And it could be investing in stocks, things like that, but it could also be just investing in your company, investing in your business, buying things so you can do your business be more productive, etc. So don't be too tight with holding money and never spending it. Just but but spend it for investments that'll bring increase when you can, and know how much you can afford that. Okay. Now on the other hand, also don't be holding money. Again, this is a mentality of fear. You don't want you don't want to invest because you're afraid you may lose your money or whatever, and you don't want to help other people because you're concerned about it, because you're worried about it. Well, if I help them, who will take care of me? God will take care of you. The liberal soul will be made fat, will be made large. Not this isn't talking about political liberal, with crazy wokeism or whatever over on the left. It's talking about generous soul. It's a King James word for generous. If you're generous with other people, you also are going to be made. God's going to be generous with you. If you water other people, take care of other people, that may mean literal watering too. There's people in this world that are drinking out of ditches because what they really need is someone to drill a well. They have no means to help themselves. If you water those people, God's going to water you. Now, yeah, running water is going to give you running water. You already have that. He's going to give you what you need at a time when you need it. So with your money, don't be hoarding it. Invest it in things that'll help you make money, and invest it in people, particularly poor people. And because he that gives to the poor honors their maker, lends to God, and he repays. And he that gives to the poor will never lack. Now, in Ecclesiastes 11, verses 1 through 2, Solomon gives us some more advice about these things, about how to handle our money under this business model. And here's what he says: cast not your bread upon the waters, for you shall find it after many days. Give a portion to 7, also to 8, for you know not what evil shall be upon the earth. Okay, so first of all, again, he's saying don't hoard it in that first part. Don't cast it out there, scatter it. It's going to come back to you. It'll come back to you. And invest that in your business, and make sure we'll talk perhaps it's not this lesson there about how to determine wise investments from foolish ones, of course, but also in helping other people. But more than that, notice diversify. And this is what he's saying here. Don't just give it all to one person or invest it all in one thing. And really don't even invest it all in one industry. It doesn't help you if you invested in 8 oil companies and then the entire oil market just crashes like the oil bust of the 80s happened. Because you don't know what evil is going to come upon the earth, you know what trouble is going to come. In the investing world, we have what we call black swan events. And a black, because let's like in nature, once most of the swans are white, once in a while there's a black one shows up. I mean, people don't expect it usually. We're talking wild swans. Well, in the same way, a black swan event is some usually no one can control it event like COVID, or like maybe like the tsunami that destroyed part of the oil production process and drove oil prices way up suddenly. Okay, or drought or something like that. And often some of these things a lot of these things are cyclical, and it's not uncommon what the same things that drive one's price up will or drive the price, I should say. Cause expansion of one will also cause another one to go down. So, if you think of it kind of like they're on opposite ends of a teeter totter, and you can't lift both up at the same time, right? So, because you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what kind of trouble is going to come. Spread it across, not just across. Get involved in different kinds of businesses. Or invest in the stocks. Invest in in different kinds of companies and stuff. So you're always got something so you're never going to lose everything if everything goes bad. I mean, the only time people are going to lose everything is when something's truly catastrophic, like the tribulation. I mean, basically in those scenarios, they're lucky to keep their lives. Okay, but other than that, not everything's going to happen at once. So you'll survive and maybe even be able to thrive if you'll diversify. And that's why he's saying, and again, even the stocks wouldn't necessarily put all in stocks. You might want to put some in something like bonds or something else unrelated to the stock market. But don't put all in one place. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Is what he's saying. So that now we're looking. Now we're going to look at this next principle here in this wise investment model. That one is based on putting God first. Okay. He that tills his land shall be satisfied with bread, but he that follows vain persons is void of understanding. Okay. Now, if you're a farmer, your land is what's going to produce your wealth. That's the bread here. Okay. And you've got to work your business to get to gain a profit and to get this. But if you leave off taking care of your business, to follow after empty people making empty promises, and it can be and this can be in all kinds of ways. I mean, this can be people are trying to get you to make foolish investments, but basically they're trying to get you distracted away from doing work when you should be doing it. Okay. Or take your focus away from your business and focusing on that and improving that to do something else. It can be just as simple, and it can be also they're trying to have you go do something that's fun when you should be working. And a lot of businesses are cyclical, just like agriculture. And there's a time for harvesting, except when it's time to harvest, often there's a short window. A lot of work needs to be done, and it doesn't matter. You really can't just take off and say, "Well, I'm going to go off to some concert. This concert festival is going to last a week, and it's a 1 day drive to get there and 1 day back." Because you do that, your crops are going to lose most of your harvest. You're going to miss the harvest window. So you're following empty, vain, senseless people, and if you follow them, it shows you are void of understanding. Work has to come first at work. You've got to take care of your business first. Now, in Proverbs 13, verse 23, we read this: much food is in the tillage of the poor, but theirs is destroyed for want of judgment. And again, you've got to discern. Every business has a cycle, and in agriculture, of course, perhaps the easiest one to say is a time to plant, and then you have to water and take care of the crops and pull weeds and maintain it. Then you have to harvest it. Well, if you don't have any judgment, don't know what you're doing, if you plant when it's harvest time, it's not going to work out well for you. If you're rather trying to harvest when it's planting season, it's not going to work out well for you either. So there's food in the tillage of the poor. The poor, as Colin is saying here, have this land. They have this land. They could be growing food, but they may be lucky they're getting enough just to get by from one year to another. And it's not because they don't have the means to they don't have the means to profit, but what's destroying them is a lack of judgment. Perhaps they don't know they don't know how to do it right, or they're trying to do it at the wrong time, or they're just letting other things distract them from their work, as we talked about earlier. So you need to do that. And of course, the solution is if you're getting something and you're not sure, get educated, learn about it, quit having a wealth of judgment. So now you're planting at the right time. You're taking care of the crops, so when it comes harvest time, you'll have the maximum harvest that you're gonna be able to get, and you're harvesting them at the right time. And that's true. And that's true about all businesses. There's a time to get started, a time to build things up, and a time when it's time to sell your product or whatever the case is. All businesses are somewhat cyclical. So, and you got to understand your business you're in. That's what this want of judgment is. They don't understand the business they're in, so they make poor decisions. And again, the solution is educate yourself. Find out find out what better ways to do what you're doing, and improve your business. And in Proverbs 14:20, verse 23, we read this final tip about laboring, about working. In all labor there is profit, but the talk of the lips tends only to penury. And penury's old word means, poverty. Okay. Look, if you can't just talk about your business, you've got to actually do the work. And it's kind of like when I grew up. My Uncle Kim was a cattle rancher. He was in the cattle business. So was his neighbor. So was our neighbor. His neighbor Chester Thurman. And yeah, sometimes they talked about cattle and everything. I mean, they talked about their cattle business, but then they went and actually put it into practice. There's something like to dress up with the cowboy outfits and all this stuff, but they never actually had cattle. They never actually worked in it. They referred to them as dime store cowboys. Okay, because you go to the dime store and you could buy, kids could buy these little outfits, right? Look like cowboys. But real cowboys don't just talk about the cattle or dress the part. They'll just talk about, they actually work with cattle. Okay. And it was working with the cattle that brought the wealth. Okay. So it's that gave us cattle to sell, to buy things we needed and wanted. And there was no profit in just talking about it, saying, well, that fence needs mending. Yeah, I agree, it needs mending. No, we had to actually go out there and mend the fence. So don't talk about it. And this can also apply in another setting, is people can get too occupied in business meetings. As a person I used to know how to sign their desk, is they love meetings. They said meetings, the alternative to work. Well, meetings are necessary, of course, so you're working wisely, but they're no substitute for work. You've got to yes, you need to talk, make a plan, but then you have to execute the plan. Okay. And just as a general rule of thumb, you should spend no more than 15% of your time in meetings, and spend perhaps 85% of your time in working. There's every case where that wasn't the case, but that's a general good rule of thumb. Okay. Now in Proverbs, so we've looked at you need to invest your money in people, and in people, and I'm sorry, in things that make you profit in people. And diversify, we looked at the fact that you need to work and not be chasing after foolish ideals and doing things like that, but you actually need to work your business, whatever it is. But now we're looking at another principle here, another principle of the wise business model. And that's here in Proverbs 20, verses 14 through 15. It is nothing, it is nothing, it is not, says the buyer. And when he's gone his way, then he boasts. There is gold and a multitude of rubies, but the lips of knowledge are a precious jewel. Okay, so you're always going to have someone, so when someone is a buyer saying it's nothing, and he's trying to talk you down the price of something, and he's trying to get you to sell it hastily for too low of a price. And if you do, when he goes home, he's going to brag about it to his family or whatever. But the lips of knowledge, knowing the value of what you're selling, and not being hasty to sell it, not being too hasty, not taking the first offer someone gives you, because often people are trying to give you an offer that's way too low at the beginning, in the hopes you'll be hasty and take it. But rather, knowing what the value is and sticking to it, and not selling your goods or services for less than what they're worth. And again, and you need knowledge to know what they're worth, because even the same goods and services aren't always have the same value. It's about supply and demand, right? And about what else is going on. So you need knowledge to know what the fair price for the market conditions is, the optimum profit point, and you need to stick to your guns about it, and not be hasty to sell for less. So it's two parts: knowing, and then doing. Know what the fair price is, and then give it to them with your mouth. And don't be hasty and let them talk you into. Don't listen to their criticisms trying to get you to sell it for cheap, for less than what it is. Now, in Proverbs 20, verse 21, we read the following: an inheritance may be gotten hastily at the beginning, but the end thereof shall not be blessed. And what it's about, generally, inheritances often come on people kind of suddenly. Someone dies, and then, maybe in an accident or whatever, and they suddenly got this money. What is gotten hastily is more a reference to what you do with it after you receive it. But some people they just can't wait to get that money, because they're going to spend it on things they don't need. And they're not going to invest that money wisely, like we talked about what you should be doing. And perhaps another hasty thing they do is they tell their people, wow, they're all happy and excited. Wow, my uncle died and left me $500,000. And next thing you know, all you are coming to them saying, oh, lend me money, I need this, and they'll never repay them or whatever. Okay. And also it's part of being hasty. And they're like, oh yeah, I'll go ahead, go and loan that to you. You've got to not be hasty with your handling of money. Yes, you have to act, but you don't have. There's a time you need to take time to think about it first. And if you get a bunch of money, that's what the implication is. You got this big surge of extra money, but it's not going to be blessed in the end. It's all going to be gone. You have nothing to show for it, and then you're going to need it and not have it, because you were too hasty to spend it or give it out or whatever the case was. You need to just sit on that money and sit down and hold it, put it in savings until you can figure out the best way to use it. Not saying hoard it for the rest of your life. We talked about no hoarding, but you don't have to invest it immediately either, or spend it immediately. Investing, again, is put it aside and spend time praying and asking the Lord for direction, and then doing something with it. Okay? Don't be too hasty with it. Now in Proverbs 21, verse 5, we read some more about the same thought. The thoughts of the diligent tend only to plentiness, but everyone that is hasty only to want. Notice the diligent aren't just putting the money aside, they're giving thought to it. Okay, how do I do this? What's the wisest thing to do with this money? And the wisest thing to do is, do these things we've been talking about. Find some way to use it for your business or to something like that, and build it in something that's going to bring increase to you, or or maybe help other people. But you need to ask the Lord what to do. But those that are hasty will come to want. They'll spend it. They'll buy things they don't need to impress people they don't like. And then when they need, then one day when they have a need, they won't have the means to take care of it. So when wealth, you gotta do not be hasty to spend your wealth. You can't hoard it, but you can't hoard it because that'll bring you to poverty also. But hold it back and think about the best way to do it, the wise thing to do with it, and then do that and work your business. But do not. And a tip here: if anyone's trying to get you to make a hasty decision, trying to put time, this is a sales technique. They'll try to put time pressure on you, so you'll make a quick decision. And when they do that, it's almost never a good decision. It's almost never in your interest. And if you find yourself in that situation, walk away or run away, or even if you need to. But get away from that situation. And those people, push them out, because they're not interested in your best. They're not looking out for your best interest if they don't want you to think about it before you do it. Use expressions like "what's there to think about," because they don't want you thinking about it. Okay, that's perhaps a big clue right there. They say something like that. Now we're gonna look some more. Now we've talked about the way of the Lord, the wise business model, one that's built on honesty and hard work and wise decision making, and not and helping other people, and these kind of things. But now we're going to flip over and look at the foolish business model that is not based on doing things the Lord's way at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We're going to look at here in Proverbs 20, verse 10. Divers weights and divers measures, both of them alike are an abomination to the Lord. Okay, again, we talked about that scale. Well, when it's divers, some people were trying to sell someone, like back to my hamburger example. They might have a weight to the pound, but it's kind of hollowed out on the inside. So they put it down. They put that weight down. It's marked 1 pound. They put the hamburger, and really they're only selling, say, the guy 14 ounces of hamburger. It's not, not quite a, not really a pound. Now it's the guy's turn to put. Now it's the guy's turn to put the flour on there. To weigh out the flour. Guy says, okay, well, now we got to put out there for 3 pounds, and the other ones now are made of a denser. On the outside, they look the same, but the first one was hauled out in the middle. They now have filled it in with a denser metal. So now the guy ends up giving you, let's say, 4 pounds of flour. So they got, or 3.5. So now instead of getting a pound of hamburger for 3 pounds of flour, if you're bartering, you gave the guy 14 ounces of hamburger, 7/8 of a pound of hamburger, and you took from him 3.5 pounds of flour. and you're cheating him. This is what I'm talking about. In diverse measures, the same measures talking about like measuring cups, etc. Okay, and it's the same principle. I got one. It's a little bigger than what it should be for whenever I'm getting something from you. One a little smaller than it should be when I'm measuring something out to you. Okay, and this they're an abomination to the Lord, and this is perhaps the guiding principle of all foolish business plans is somehow not treating people is somehow trying to cheat people in some way to get something. False, advertising something you don't really have, except, making promises you can't keep, except, okay, whatever it takes to get the sale. Over promising and you over promise, you're always going to under deliver. But anything like that, anything that's dishonest is part of this foolish business model. It's built on dishonesty at the end of the day. And then Proverbs 20, verse 23, Solomon expounds upon this a little bit more. Diverse weights an abomination to the Lord. A false balance is not good. You have false balance. Now I mentioned that balance, like the first one I had was like a simple balance, but maybe there's some sort of mechanism, some sort of gear or something in there involved, or maybe instead of being in the center, you got a way we move the fulcrum part in the middle, maybe the left or right. So now, if you know anything about levers, if it's not right in the center, it won't. You've actually thrown the balance off, and it's again the same idea. Is just to cheat somebody, to give them less than what they deserve, than what you promised, and get from them more than what you agreed to. Again, it's about deceit, and not uncommon for people to say, well, they overpromised and underdelivered. No, they operate in deceit from the beginning. Anyone, there's no honest way to be a yes man. If someone tells other people always, I can do whatever you want, for whatever price you offer, in whatever time frame you want, they're a liar. Okay. And they're not operating under the wisest model, they're operating under this foolish business model. Now, let's continue on Proverbs 22, verse 28. Remove not the ancient landmark which your fathers have set. Okay, now this is a similar thing, but it's really talking about explanation. These landmarks, people have some property. Let's say they cast lots. They divide that land evenly. All right. They cast lots. Okay, you get that side, I get this side. Their fathers did. Well, later, their children, one decides, I really like to expand my property. So at night he goes out and moves these little stone pillars, the stone pillars to move the property line to make his neighbor's property a little smaller and his a little larger. Well, what's he really doing? He's stealing from his neighbors. What he's really doing, he's stealing land, which is the means of production. Okay. And it happens in business all the time. It may not be actual landmarks, but the foolish business model tries to take something from somebody that belongs to somebody else and bring it into your possession. And so again, this foolish business model is not built on open, honest communication and open, honest practices and treating people right. It's built on deceitful practices. Now we're going to contrast these two, kind of the results of these two models. We're going to start doing that. We're going to enter Proverbs chapter 10, verse 16. The labor of the righteous tends to life, but the fruit of the wicked to sin. Okay, so the labor of the righteous is trying to bring life to people. It's trying to it tends towards making things better for everyone. Win-win business deals, those kind of things. Okay, but the end result of the wicked is sin, and often their business model may be based on that. Their business might be like they're a pimp, and so that the fruit of their product is sexual sin, or maybe they're like the drug dealer, drug lord, whatever, and and the fruit of what they do is sin, is wickedness towards other people, and ultimately bringing people to misery and stuff. But that's how they're going to make their money. They're going to make it off something it's wicked and sinful, and it doesn't make people's lives better; it makes them worse. So that's one way you can tell the two apart. Here's another one in Proverbs 11:23. The desire of the righteous is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. Okay, again, the righteous are looking out for the good of other people. They have no problem helping the poor because they're looking out for. In fact, that's often what motivates them to increase their business, so they can help more people with these kind of things. And they're looking out for good for their community and everything else. But the wicked, they're up to no good. And they may not be these examples I gave earlier about a pimp but they may be running a business and they haven't been truthful, and they're afraid of being audited by the IRS. Okay, because they expect wrath. They're always living under this fear they're going to be found, that they're going to get caught, and they're going to be found out, and the hammer is going to come down on them because they're up to no good and operating in deceit. And the last thing deceitful people want is honest people. They'll expose their deceit, and then the trouble will come upon them. Now, in Proverbs 11:26, Solomon gives us another difference in how these people operate. Their business models. In Proverbs 11, verse 26. He that withholds corn, the people shall curse him. But blessing shall be upon the head of him that sells it. Now, corn doesn't necessarily mean maize, it means grain. King James, grain, okay? But the point is food. Now, why would someone withhold food to create an artificial crisis, shortage, to drive the price up? When there's a shortage, the price always goes up. Well, maybe there's no real shortage at all. The guy just somehow got a monopoly on it, and food people have to have. It's about necessity, and when you're holding back necessity from people to drive the price up, yeah, people are going to curse you. And particularly, this is one of those things that they're worried about being found out, because if people find out they're doing it, they may come out with torches and pitchforks, so to speak. I mean, in some cases in history, literally came out with more pitchforks and torches and pitchforks, and kill them in some nasty manner because they've been starving their children and stuff. But the righteous don't operate that way. They're looking out for the good of people. So they're going to sell the food and not try to create an artificial shortage. If anything, they're going to look for a way. If food prices are high because there's a shortage going on, they're going to try to look for alternative ways to feed people. Okay? And people are going to bless them for it. And they're going to be blessed by God Almighty also as well. So it's another contrast between these two business models. Again, one's built on honesty and trust and hard work in hard work and making wise decisions. And the other one's built on deceit and oppressing people. Now, we're looking. We're looking at, how these things turn out for each person. I mean, contrast that. We're beginning at 11. Each model, the results of each model. We're going to look at start here in Proverbs 11, verse 27 through 28. He that diligently seeks good procures favor, but he that seeks mischief, it shall come unto him. He that trusts in his riches shall fall, but the righteous shall flourish as a branch. Hey, look, if you're actively seeking good, you're going to procure favor with God and man alike. People are going to be blessing you. And you're going to flourish. You're going to flourish as a branch, not like a dry branch that falls off a tree, but a fruitful branch that the tree invests more into. It ends up a healthy and strong branch. But those who seek mischief are going to find it. It's going to come upon them. I mean, they're not paranoid when they're out there worried about expecting wrath all the time, because they know it's due them. And the root of their problem is they're trusting in their riches, and they're going to fall. The righteous may have riches, but they don't trust in their riches. Remember, let God be your master and let wealth be your slave. Their trust is in the Lord. And they may even have a time to be like Job where they lose it all. But they're still gonna but when it's done, they still flourish. They may go from wealth, they go from a certain amount of wealth all the way down to nothing. But then because they're trusting in the Lord, they're righteous, doing what's right in the eyes of God, He's going to bring them up wealthier than they were in the beginning. So that wise business model is going to produce good results for you, and the bad one's is going to bring trouble on you. And all that wealth you accumulate, that bad business model is not going to be able to save you, because your wealth can be taken away quickly, and it will not keep you from dying and facing judgment. Now in Proverbs 12, verse 12 through 14, we'll read the following. The wicked desires the net of evil men, but the root of righteousness yields fruit. The wicked is snared in the transgression of his lips, but the just shall come out of trouble. A man is satisfied with good by the fruit of his mouth, and the recompense of a man's hand shall be rendered unto him. Okay, look, the wicked are always looking for the net of evil men, a way to ensnare other people, a way to trap people, to get to build their business up, again, through oppressing and getting people trapped into things. Like mortgage, it comes from two Latin words, mortgage, literally means death grip, okay? And they're looking for a way to trap people. But the root of the righteous, the root of what's the righteous is the fear of God, that cornerstone of wisdom. And it's going to yield fruit. And they're not going to be looking for a way to ensnare other people. They're going to be looking for ways to help other people and also make a profit in the process. Nothing wrong with that. You don't feel well, a doctor helps you, he charges, and you pay him. And because he has expenses too. And there's nothing wrong with him making money that way. But there's something definitely wrong with trying to trap people to make money, to put them in a trap. And notice the wicked are snared by the transgression of his lips. They themselves get caught in a trap by their own words. Eventually, they'll trip up with their words. The transgression, what's to speak of sin, saying wrong things with their mouths, lying and the like. Okay. Well, their lies will catch up to them. They'll be found out eventually, and they'll find themselves trapped. But the just will come out of trouble, and we've seen this many times. Of Joseph, he did what was right and ran away. Potiphar's wife falsely accused him, and he went to prison. They'll say, "Well, he went to prison," but how did it end? Second in charge of Egypt. Okay. And me and Mordecai, Haman, as we talked about with the wisdom of Esther, a while back, in the course of the wisdom of Mordecai too. The trouble was, well, gonna wipe out and kill all the Jews, and Mordecai's particularly, and particularly Mordecai, we're gonna hang him. But he came out of it. Again, second in command. Because God's plans work because they're God's plans. And you'll come out of trouble. Now, that doesn't mean you won't have trouble. You can't come out of trouble unless you go into trouble. Trouble will come because we have an enemy, Hashatan, the god of this world. But what he means for evil, God will turn to good. If we do things God's way. And we do things this way by the fruit of our mouth, not the words of transgression, not speaking sinful words. We're going to be satisfied with good. And all of us, those who follow that foolish business plan based on deceit, and those who follow the wise one based on trust in the Lord, and so you're providing honest, hard work, and always looking for the good of other people. We're all gonna reap what we sow, whether good or bad. So sow what's good so you can reap what's good. Now, in Proverbs 21, verse 8, we read the following: the way of man is froward and strange, but as for the pure, his work is right. Okay, the way the human nature, if you want to call that, say that, is that word froward. We don't use it much, but it's kind of archaic, but it means like stubbornly obstinate, and particularly in the context of this, against God and his ways. And that's the nature of our flesh. And it's strange from God. It doesn't know God's ways. And this is the condition of every human being when they're born. People are like, "Oh, God knows my heart." Yes, he does. And here's what he says about it. He says the human heart is deceitfully wicked. Is exceedingly wicked and deceitful above all things. That's why it has to be replaced. We must be born again. But when we repent and God changes our heart, we're made pure, and then our work is right. And again, so that wise business model, even though you can do these things to your best, without God, you can't really carry them out all the way without God. Your flesh will always be pulling against you, and you'll always be, and eventually it will win out. Because that obstinate attitude against God will pull you to do the wrong thing. And so to operate in this, we need to be made pure. And we can only be made pure through total surrender to Yeshua, to Jesus. There is no salvation without true repentance. There's no true repentance without total surrender. So the wise business model depends upon us doing that, because we're already born inclined to do it the wrong way. To go follow the foolish business model. Now we're going to wrap up here in our last section here with what happens if we don't turn to do it the right way, and we follow that, obstinate determination to do it the wrong way. And here's what's going to happen: the bread of deceit is sweet to a man, but afterwards his mouth should be filled with gravel. Okay. Yeah, it's gonna taste good. It's gonna people will be like, oh yeah, holding up their sign, blow up with a check, whatever the case is, celebrating and stuff. But a few years down the road, they wish it had never happened. They are full of regret, and if they don't turn from it, they're gonna end up in hell. And the bread, so that sweetness of the bread of deceit is itself deceitful, because it does not last. It only covers up the bitterness that's going to be in your mouth. I mean, gravel. Think about it. You can't breathe really. It probably tastes. I'm sure it tastes terrible. It's hard, and it's going to break your teeth. It's basically a picture of suffering here. Okay, and it's just, you don't want to end up that way. It's going to take you to a bad place if you operate with that foolish business model. And in Proverbs 21, verse 6 through 7, we read the following: the getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a vanity tossed to and fro of them that seek death. The robbery of the wicked shall destroy them, because they refuse to do judgment. All right, so remember this whole foolish business model was built on deceit, lying. Right? I'm gonna get wealth by lying somehow. Rather it's being a yes man and saying, oh yeah, I can do whatever you want for whatever price you want and whatever time frame you want, or having dishonest scales and balances, moving people's boundaries, some way trying to get something that doesn't belong to you, and getting your treasures by getting something that doesn't, by getting some means other than working hard and making wise decisions and looking out for the good of other people. Okay, instead you're going to lie in some fashion, and it turns out to be emptiness. And there's no stability, and it's tossed to and fro. And they're always worried about losing it all and whatever, because they know there's no solidness under it. And the thing is, those who are doing that is them that seek death. If you're going to get that foolish business model, is for those who are seeking their own demise, because this robbery they're committing through these various means is going to destroy them. Because they refuse to do judgment, that means the judgments of God, to do what he says is right, to operate. They refuse to operate in that wise business model we talked about in the beginning. And it's going to bring them destruction. There is no other model that's not going to bring you destruction in the end, except for that wise model we talked about, that is totally dependent upon us depending totally upon the Lord. And again, we must be born again to do that, because the inclination of our flesh is to not do this, is to try to find a shortcut and not work, and not work, not tend to our own business success. In Proverbs 23, verses 10 through 11, we close with this: remove not the old landmark, and they're on the fields of the fatherless. Their Redeemer is mighty. He will plead their cause with you. Okay, notice the fields of the fatherless. I mean, this movie is not someone who's, their father died, whatever, and now you're trying to take their property as well. So it's not moving the landmark, trying to get the property of someone that doesn't belong to you, to expand your wealth. And it may work. It may seem like it works for a while, but it's not over. God is their Redeemer. He'll plead their cause with you, and he'll plead it several. First of all, he has ways of making you miserable in this life. Okay. Secondly, if you don't repent of that and and turn to him to make you pure, and you continue down this stubborn obstinance, I mean this obstinate determination to, to be strange, to do it, to keep yourself estranged from his ways, if you're gonna find yourself in hell, and then face him with the great white throne judgment, and then in a resurrected body in the lake of fire. You do not want to follow this foolish business model. You want to follow the wise business model, that one based on trust in the Lord. So you do everything with honesty, with good intention, looking out for the good of other people. And you work and make wise investments and gain knowledge about your business. And don't make hasty decisions. That's all I got for this week. Until next week, shalom.